Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 145 of the Near Memo with David, Mike, and Greg. And today we will be talking about AI content farms and consumer preferences around content. We'll be talking about SGE in Google Maps, sort of. And we'll also be talking about a new study from Bright Local on multi-location brands and local SEO. And so there's a lot of good stuff today. So I'm going to lead it off with a discussion of consumer preferences around AI content. SEMrush did a study which looked into this, which is very interesting. It's a very, very large study that surveys small businesses, agencies, and consumers about all things AI, and they talk about AI and SEO for content creation. But the thing that was most interesting to me about the study was that they asked human writers and AI a bunch of questions to generate blog posts, social media posts, and social ads. And then they showed those to consumers. I believe the sample size was something like 700 consumers. And they asked them, which one do you prefer, the human created content or the AI content? And in every single instance, the consumers preferred the AI content without knowing exactly what it was, presumably. The margin of victory was different in different examples. It wasn't always, in some cases it was 70 to 30, in some cases 50 something to 40 something. But it was kind of astounding to me that in every single case, the AI content was preferred. And, I think that there are a lot of implications. If that can be generalized, there are a lot of implications of that for content on the internet. I mean, it's already being really widely used. One of the other findings of the survey was that business owners had adopted it at very high levels and agencies, and they were using it for content creation, and it was working. This was the overwhelming kind of sentiment that AI content was working. It was ranking, it was effective, it reduced their costs. And in combination with this, I just want to throw in that there was an interesting article in Wired that has gotten a lot of attention on Twitter and LinkedIn about a guy who's bought a bunch of old domains that were popular at one time, but now have sort of languished or gone defunct. And he's populated them now with AI generated content, and he's making a whole bunch of money. Essentially, he's created a bunch of content farms or an AI content farm, and he's put all these AI generated articles on all these popular blogs, and it's done pretty well, although the article does say that some of them are declining in their traffic volume. And so what do you think this portends for the future of the internet? We've got marketers who like it, say it's working well. We've got consumers who seem to prefer AI content, and we've got people making money off of populating websites with AI content. This all suggests that the web is going to become substantially covered with AI, generated material pretty soon. Good development. Depressing.
So I think my feeling has been that AI content in and of itself isn't necessarily bad. I think AI content with an editor largely would be much better than a human generated piece of content. I think AI tends to sort of structure things logically and produce content in the way that consumers like to consume it in many cases. Like generally consumers don't want to read the, 2,000 word tome that a typical English major wants to produce. And so I think that's
sports reports about basketball games are a good example, right? You want to know the highlights of the game and you want one paragraph in and out.
So I think me as a consumer, like obviously I'm a big basketball fan. Like I want to read interviews with players and coaches and GMs, and I want the sort of, high level summary of stuff. And so the sort of long form, descriptions of things it's just a less engaging way to scratch my itch for more basketball information. So I don't necessarily think more AI content is bad. And like I said, I think if directed properly, that AI is probably going to do at least as good a job as many low-paid content creators are today who are human beings. And so I don't know that that's necessarily a bad development for the web. It may be a terrible development for humanity. I think AI is going to take a lot of jobs, but I guess I don't necessarily fear the the sort of onslaught of AI and to piggyback on your point about the guy who's buying a bunch of domains, we know the tried and true adage from Eric Schmidt that brands are actually how you sort out the cesspool of the internet, not necessarily whether a piece of content is built by a bot or written by a human. And so I think it's a brilliant strategy on the part of this guy to buy a bunch of brands that people recognize, that Google trusts, and produce content that consumers like in a format that they like. And even Danny Sullivan, the search liaison for Google, even he has said AI content in and of itself isn't necessarily not helpful. And so I think that who are we to say that this guy creating a bunch of content with AI, if he's built the prompts properly and he's curating the output properly, like maybe that actually is delivering a good experience to consumers.
I have two thoughts. One is Sports Illustrated domain soon to be available, by the way, for this.
Yes, that's right. Perfect example. Yeah.
And the other is that I am testing the pro version of LinkedIn, which offers to automatically rewrite your post with AI, which is interesting. And sometimes it does, even by my judgment and my writing, does a better job, and sometimes it doesn't. But it is interesting to speculate about an internet where not only the content, but all feedback about the content and feedback about the feedback is all generated by AI. And then the question is, like with LinkedIn, I am curating this and making sure I approve it, but there is a vision of the internet that, as Greg implied, is much more dystopian in the future, potentially.
Bots talking to bots, which is basically what Duplex was invented to solve, right? Or to create.
Exactly.
I think that AI content, I'm using ChatGPT every day. I'm using Google Bard. I'm using Perplexity. So I'm a big fan of these tools. I think that they can be enormously helpful in certain contexts. And I agree that in certain categories of writing, which are informational, they can be really useful. The writing doesn't have any personality, which is one negative about it. So if it's just factual information, assuming no hallucination, that you're looking for sports scores or what happened. Semaphore, Microsoft is now doing a lot with AI and journalism, and Semaphore, which is a new publication, has created a product called Semaphore Signals, which is going to be AI news summaries. And so some of these things are really interesting and can be useful, and especially, with all of our collective short attention spans, I think it satisfies that versus some sprawling English major tome, as you said, especially the recipe blogs where you just want to see the recipe and you don't want to hear the life story of the author or when they were in Turkey looking for saffron or something.
I think you should start a new recipe blog where all the recipes are from ChatGPT and see, your favorite recipes. You can tell them what's in your fridge, however you generate it.
Well,
and let ChatGPT write the recipes and see how that does.
One of the problems is that people have tried to write things in a way that they think Google is going to like, sort of SEO driven writing. Now, if it's logical structure and headings and all of those things, that's fine. But people just writing excessively long articles or blog posts because there's some guy out there who said, it's got to be at least 1,500 words or 2,000 words. See, that's the kind of thing that is problematic online. So if ChatGPT or its brethren are corrected for that, that's great. But I would be unhappy to see the bot versus bot or bot talking to bot scenario that you're describing, Mike. And I think that that's where a lot of stuff is headed. So we'll see.
Greg,
we'll see what happens.
I want to push back on your statement about like, I don't want to know the author's life story if I'm, trying to find a recipe or whatever. I guess I would say, I think that there's still going to be a very significant place in the internet ecosystem for personal brands. That we've seen that, explode with the rise of Instagram and TikTok. Right. And so I think that trend will continue, and that people are still going to want this authentic, sort of more personalized,
totally,
to the on the part of the creator. They're still going to want that experience, and so I think that it's going to be hard for Martha Stewart to AI fake a bunch of stuff. However, MarthaStewart.com, the property that she has built by virtue of her personal brand, I think it's fine if she uses AI to curate certain recipes into collections or whatever. I think that that's a perfectly good use case for AI.
I think the thing that you described, the authenticity of social media or influencers or celebrities or whoever it is, I think that that only gets stronger, right? That's a reaction against the sort of genericizing of content elsewhere. And that's what we're seeing with Google with the hidden gems and all the sort of surfacing of Reddit and everything. It's like that's a preemptive reaction against this sort of flood of generic AI stuff. They want to show you, you know,
Which is worse, influencers or AI generated stuff? It's like, oh my God, gagging with a spoon here. Influencers are pretty bad. And they write all their own shit.
Well, influencers who simply show up and spew nonsense to keep attention and get whatever ad revenue, that's a problem. But people who are genuinely experts or who have a strong point of view or who have valuable things to say, that's a good thing.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.